All right, so this video is going to be about how I became an antinatalist by way of the Childfree movement. So first, just to lay out where I'm at, I think that non-existence is always better than existence. I'm not a conditional person where like, oh, maybe if we make like enough progress, then it'll make sense to have kids. Like, I don't think so. I think just stick with non-existence. Can't beat that. It's all downhill from non-existence. I peaked in non-existence. Okay, like people say they peaked in high school. I peaked in non-existence. So that's it. Can't beat that. So moving on. Now that we kind of laid out where I'm at. Although I had managed to break out of religion in high school and like a couple of other things, and I felt like there were a couple of other things I managed to like kind of shake off, but religion was really like the main one. I still had like the traditional notions of like you have to have a family and you have to settle down and you have to own a house and you gotta go to college and you gotta get married and you gotta have kids and so on and so on. And I think a lot of that just came from the fact that like my parents did that, that they had a healthy marriage, that I had that like they would always talk up how having a family is the most important thing that they'd ever done, how like, their children are their greatest accomplishments or whatever, and like that kind of thing. So they just really talked it up and like made it seem like the central experience in life, and like it was never like if you have a kid, it was always like when you have a kid, when you have kids, when you have your own family, when you buy a house. So it was something I just sort of like took for granted that that's like what my life was going to be like, and that was like the premier experience, the main experience in life, and like would be my main role as a person, which I think honestly kind of like screwed me over in a number of ways. But anyway, it's a little crazy because in college I was surrounded by like opportunities for me to break out of that kind of traditional life script mindset. People who had operated outside of the traditional life script. There were people who were like, most of my friends were like pretty like leftist, pretty analytical. They were like deconstructing a lot of things, and like a lot of my friends had like broken out of that stuff, but for whatever reason, like I just like could not shake that loose. And like as many different like directions as I could have gone in my life, the direction I chose to go in was getting a job kind of around home, where I graduated, and a job that's like suited for having a family. And I was still planning on like having the kids, doing all that stuff. It's honestly very frustrating to me now that I like was not able to break out of that mindset earlier. But I try not to think about like what could have been or where I could be or what I could be doing, because it's not really productive. But I guess just suffice it to say, I should have been able to break out in college. Shortly after getting out of college, I did have a girlfriend who was like really sort of like pushing me to be child free, and she kind of like made me aware of like like the benefits of the dink lifestyle, the dual income, no kids, and like for me looking back on it, like that still didn't give me a light bulb moment, unfortunately. Like I was still very like resistant to that, and I think it's just because those values had been put in me from such an early age that I just like, even though I was close to her, I viewed that as like wrong or misguided, or that like there's sort of like a level of like, oh well, I'm going to get my parenthood experience, like I'm not going to be out of the game, like I'm going to get that because I'm like competitive, or like there was like a like I want this experience that I've been told I'm supposed to have that's so good, or which of course, I mean, like now in retrospect, like parenting seems like a terrible, terrible experience for the most part. Especially if they end up with depression. It's another, story for another time. But so I did have the exposure again. So high school, I had some friends that were planning to be child-free and had broken out of that stuff. College, I had some friends that were planning to be child-free and had broken out of that stuff. And then after graduating, having some very close people that were child-free and had broken out of that stuff. But I was still stuck in that mindset. So what was it that allowed me to break out? And that's like interesting, and I'm really, I think it was, as I remember it, it was sort of like a combination of factors. So like in my job, I was the youngest one working, and I had like several like, older work friends that I made who were child-free for different reasons. And looking at their lives, they had a lot more time to invest in their careers. They had more time to invest in their hobbies. They had more time to invest in like creating the kind of lifestyle that they wanted at home. They had more time to invest in like doing a good job at their job. Like, so there's like all these things. Like, they had way more money. Also, conversations with them were way more interesting because they like thought about things other than only their child. And so like there's just a whole range of things we could talk about, as opposed to my coworkers who had children, and everything would always just be about their children, which as it should be probably if you're being a parent, but it does not make for interesting conversation for me, to be honest. So anyway, I had all these coworkers, and like I think I was like sort of like in the back of my mind comparing my coworkers who had kids who didn't have, and those who didn't have kids. And then I ended up, unfortunately that first relationship didn't work out. I ended up getting into another relationship with a person who was a little older, who didn't have kids, and like was fine with that, and like wasn't like adamantly child-free, but like still sort of like challenged me to. She was like, why do you have such rigid beliefs about like what you have to do with your life? You don't have to do anything you don't want to do. And so like I really started questioning myself, like, why do I have these super rigid beliefs? And so I went through a period of like really like thinking about it a lot, and like I did with like getting out of religion and getting out of meat eating or consuming animal products, I like then went on the internet, kind of explored like the arguments, checked out the opinions of like YouTubers or like Reddit people who were child-free, because at that time that's how I was thinking about it, was what lifestyle do I want, right? Do I want the lifestyle that involves child rearing, that like my parents had always said was the great one and whatever, or did I want the lifestyle that maybe offered more freedom, more money, more opportunity, more intimacy or something with a partner, less stress, the ability to sleep in on the weekends? And for me, it was just like a easy question once I allowed myself to think about it. Like the answer to that was obviously that I preferred the child-free lifestyle. And so I just spent like months and months, so my light bulb moment, I think it came as a product of that girlfriend asking me those questions, and also speaking with my child-free coworkers. And so the light bulb moment came, and then I really just like immersed myself in our child-free, so like the child-free subreddit, and became very sold, became very convinced. So even to the point like of thinking about getting a vasectomy there for a while. I haven't done that yet. It's still like on my mind. That's probably another video. But so I became very like solidly child-free. Okay, but this video is not how I became child-free. This video is how I became antinatalist. It's getting a little long already here, huh? But anyway, so as I was spending time in the child-free subreddit, there would occasionally be mentions of antinatalism or people that would kind of like, there would be little posts there that like made me aware of it, but I still viewed it as like an other philosophy or like that I didn't really agree with. That wasn't until I actually like started looking into it, and I actually went to their subreddit, and I actually like started listening to YouTube videos about it. I think the thing that clicked for me with antinatalism was actually like an Mendham video. Seems like he just like pops up everywhere, right? But he made a video just about suffering and about the sort of the futility and the senseless brutality of life, and it really just sold me. I guess another thing to mention here is that like I have had depression off and on for like forever. Like since like my brain formed, it just seems like I've had issues with depression, and sometimes it's treated and sometimes I'm consumed by it, and there's varying levels of severity, but that really primed me, I think, for Mendham's message, and then also like the extent of my child-freeness sort of made me able to consider Mendham's message, and I think I just shifted right there, and it was basically a gradual process of like, it was a process of spending less time on the Childfree subreddit, more time on the antinatalism subreddit, less time watching Childfree videos, more time watching antinatalist videos. Of course, a lot of the things that Old Fan has done with the Exploring Antinatalism podcast, and then things like antinatalist outreach, Life Sucks, I Doubt It, that stuff all really helped me in my journey, helped me turn the corner. So yeah, I think really that's like how I became an antinatalist. There was a lot more work that needed to be done in uninstalling the pro-natalist mindset around. Really, it was a lot harder for me to become child-free than it was for me to become antinatalist. So going from I plan to have kids just because I do, because it's the default and it's whatever, it's supposed to be this great experience. Going from that to the child-free lifestyle view took much longer than going from child-free to antinatalism. And yeah, it was really just like that, one of those light bulb moments again. So maybe I'll make another video talking a lot about like what more specifically I believe within antinatalism at some point, but I think I'm going to call it a day on this one here. That's how I became an antinatalist by way of becoming child-free. So like, subscribe, comment, have a good day. See you in the next video. Stay golden.